left the runway. The process on ground, though, to match the dead with the remains and hand over their bodies to their families is turning out to be an excruciatingly traumatizing and painful process. As of the latest update, 114 matches have been confirmed and over 60 bodies have been handed over to the families. Many bodies, remember, have been charred beyond recognition and even been damaged. In fact, the last rites of former Gujarat Chief Minister Vijay Rupani are all set to be held in just a bit from now. Focus is now also on the probe because everyone is waiting to know exactly what caused this crash. This could be of global consequences. The teams that are involved in the investigations include the Indian team, of course, of the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau. Boeing officials have also become part of this investigation because of the aircraft concerned. 10-member team from the US National Transportation Safety Board and the Federal Aviation Administration, and a team of aviation experts from the UK have also come in. US and UK teams will be aiding the Indian agencies as far as this probe is concerned. The investigators will scrutinize the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. They will cross-verify visual and radar records, scrutinize CCTV footages, for example, that have been found from the BJ Medical College and the Ahmedabad airport, and also the videos that have been circulated. Video recorded by the local resident named Aryan, which shows the aircraft's descent, wing position, orientation, etc. just before impact. These materials are being synchronized or will be synchronized to reconstruct the timeline of the crash and pinpoint possible anomalies. Preliminary report has to be given out within 30 days of a crash, although the investigation will continue possibly almost as much as a year. Now, according to aviation experts, the ram air turbine, or the RAT, was activated shortly after takeoff, which is now pointing to loss of power all over again. RAT is a wind turbine connected to hydraulic pump or generator. It is a critical emergency backup system on modern aircrafts. It provides electrical and hydraulic pressure during emergencies like the one we feel this flight has faced, and provides power in case of failure of main generation systems. Now, there are two ways to deploy an RAT. Automatic deployment is triggered when there is a complete loss of electrical power or both engines fail. Both engines failing simultaneously or together, remember, is a very rare occurrence. Manual deployment, where the pilot activates it, switches a switch or a lever in the cockpit. This is used if the automatic system fails. Now, the sequence of deploying an RAT is as follows. Firstly, a complete failure of main electrical and hydraulic systems is sensed. Then the RAT deployment mechanism is activated. Here, a spring-loaded or a hydraulic mechanism pushes the RAT out of its housing, which is at the bottom of the airplane. Then, air pressure spins the RAT's small propeller and it pushes the aircraft forward. The RAT basically is an emergency generator or hydraulic pump, restoring just enough power to operate essential systems in the case of an emergency. With more suggestions coming in on possible power loss, flyers continue to remain on the edge, especially since two India-bound Dreamliners have faced mid-air scares within hours of this tragedy. A Chennai-bound British Airways Boeing Dreamliner was forced to return to London mid-air after it encountered a technical snag, we are being told, on June 15. The flight, which reportedly took off after 35 minutes delay, encountered a problem with the flaps. And today, an Air India Dreamliner bound to Delhi from Hong Kong was forced to return. The aircraft returned 90 minutes after takeoff following a suspected technical issue that was flagged by the pilots. The recent incidents put the Boeing 787 Dreamliner in dock, reminding us of what a Boeing whistleblower had said about this particular aircraft. In 2024, a whistleblower, Boeing engineer Sam Salehpour, who worked at the Boeing for over a decade, urged the company to ground every 787 Dreamliner worldwide, warning they were at risk of premature failure. The whistleblower alleged that Boeing took shortcuts to reduce production bottlenecks while making this particular aircraft. He also went on to allege that he faced retaliation, including threats and exclusion from meetings after raising concerns over these issues, including a gap between parts of the fuselage of the 787. With these instances coming to light, and of course, what is pointing out to the possible cause of the tragedy in this case, the question we ask is simply this: with Boeing stressed with troubles, are red flags being ignored? Let me go across to some of our experts joining us. Vayan Sharma is CEO of Chimes Aviation and Captain Kabir Malik is a charter airline pilot. Captain Malik, I begin with you. This entire rat theory that is doing the rounds now, do you feel this is the more plausible explanation of what could have happened? That this indeed, even if it is rare, this indeed was a case of complete power loss that can be caused due to a twin engine problem?
We can see that the plane is gliding in the proper height, and when it is reached in the height of 6 or 700 between, suddenly he lost the power, and we can see it sink. It's very early in within 18 to 20 seconds. So we are talking about the rat. Rat is there is an instrument inside the undercarriage of the air, this 787. It is on the left side. Whenever anything happened with the power loss of the aircraft, it automatically came outside and start work. It does start working within 20 to 25 seconds. So if you could see that time between the aircraft, which is the time it lost the power and touched down the ground. So it was hardly 18 to 20 seconds. It didn't happen. So the RAM didn't get the proper time to start, to supply the hydraulic power and the electrical power to the electrical system and the hydraulic system. So that was the reason which we can assume only till now. There is a problem with the power of the aircraft, which is lost, and it is happened actually.
You know, what you're describing seems to be the rarest of rare kind of case. I mean, so quickly after takeoff for everything to go bust, so quickly that it didn't even give the emergency rat equipment to even come into effect.
Yeah, it was very less time. You can see the visuals also. If the pilot had more than 1 minute, or he would be on height of more than 1,000 feet, then he could able to just save the aircraft, and the rats definitely would give the power to the aircrafts and the hydraulic and electrical system. But unfortunately, it was our bad luck. The time was very less, and the rat was not in the position to
How
supply.
can something like this happen? You know, this is putting a lot of people on edge. How can something like this happen for such a advanced aircraft which is being used all around the world within seconds of takeoff?
Yeah, it is. So it is a technical error somewhere, and the power loss. We cannot assume and cannot say exactly right now in this stage, because the plane was when start from the from the runway. The power. This captain had some idea that he is losing power, or he just suddenly delivered the medic call to the ATCA. The moment ATCA received the call, in this moment, hardly they were not able to get the response from the ATCA and any team. The plane was touched down the ground, and it was in the bad condition that time. So it was, we can say, we have to wait until unless the report will not come in the proper way. But and as per my observation, it happened in the world first time with the 787. Never and never it had happened with this kind of machinery. This machinery is really very good. You can say the time in the beginning of 2009, when Airbus launched their new aircraft. It was called by 380. So that time, this Boeing company was losing their market internationally in the world. So they competed in the competition of Airbus 380. They launched this aircraft with all the safety norms and the security and the advanced technology, and it was working properly. And today's date, if you find that almost 1188 aircrafts are working till 12th of June. Although we lost one in this almost 14 years. It came in the series of 2011 in November. First aircraft we received by Air India, until it was working. I think the machinery is by time it is required some maintenance, and the technical issues would be there. And we have to be check out the machinery these days now into the service with the airlines in different airlines. And I think already DGC and the Civil Ministry of India
All right. We seem to have lost
The
your audio.
new
Just hold on with yes. Just hold on
certificate
with
will
me.
not uh, come from
Okay. Even as he
DGCA.
fixes his equipment, let me just take the same question to Vayan Sharma, CEO of Chines Aviation as well. You know, not just for a Dreamliner or Boeing. I'll come to the issue of Boeing in just a bit. But not just for this airline or this aircraft company and the aircraft. This seems to be a very unique crash in itself. Just broadly speaking, across any aircraft.
See, that is the exactly precisely the case that just on takeoff failure of both the engines, unheard of. There are no instances like that, even in recorded history, that something like this would have happened. An aircraft which is a proven performer, as the captain was mentioning before I spoke, that last 12, 13 years it's been in operation, more than 1,100 aircraft flying daily. No, hundreds of thousands of hours they've logged already with no incident as such, which is life threatening or damage to the machine as such. For this to happen, we are still grasping for answers here that what it could be. And see, there are, 7, 8 theories which are out there. I've said this earlier also that, you can pick your favorite one and go with it. But till the time the data is not analyzed, that complete investigation is not done, all that will happen is that as the facts keep coming out, things get ruled out, or more aspects kept getting, more options start coming on the table. What could have caused it? But right now, you are totally in the realm of speculation.
But one thing is clear
That,
now, as was being
okay, we
suggested by
started
some,
off with, okay.
that there was some sort of a manual error on the part of the co-pilot. At least that can be ruled out, given what we know now.
Yes. Now, as I said, that as the facts keep coming out, certain things would be, which will be taken off the table. That, okay, this cannot be the call. So this could be one of the things we started off with, is that maybe instead of the undercarriage being retracted, the pilots inadvertently retracted the flaps. To that, even that time I had said that if that had happened, the pilot has called a mayday.
Exactly.
Okay, that means he was aware of what was happening in the cockpit. So that I discounted it at that time. A lot of people still went with that theory. Today, at least, it stands discounted that that is not the case. Okay, there was a complete loss of power. That is how the rat got deployed, and the pilot had called out a mayday, and unfortunately did not have enough height in which any kind of remedial action could have been taken. See,
But
normally when the rat get deployed is, if you have altitude, at that time this happens. The rat get deployed, start generating electricity, which feeds your hydraulic and your electrical, and you could try to reignite your engines, as in restart the engines.
yes,
When you have a total height of 400 feet, that stretches, even the rat is not fully deployed at that time, in the sense it doesn't start in that short span of 10 seconds, 15
absolutely,
seconds.
absolutely.
It doesn't
Which
start
is the
generating.
absolutely
It's
crushing
basically a
aspect.
windmill. It's a
Absolutely
windmill.
crushing aspect of this tragedy. But Sanat Kaul, former Joint Secretary of Ministry of Civil Aviation, is also joining us. But before I go across to Mr. Kaul on what needs to be done, Mr. Sharma, I do want to ask you, according to you, what could cause this sudden loss of power, unheard of, as you talked about, immediately after takeoff? Clearly, during takeoff, everything was fine. And then suddenly, 1 second later, everything goes bust. You know, this is creating a
I'm
lot of
so
alarm amongst the public.
I'm sorry. This is as I said, we can talk of probable theories, but something like this happening, especially with the new fact coming in that the rat got deployed, means that it definitely was both the engines losing power. Normally, something like that which happens is bird hit. Now, because this aircraft had just taken off and then sort of crashed literally outside the
The
boundary
airport,
wall of
yes.
the airport. Now, when something like this happens, immediate runway inspection was done. If there had been bird ingestion in the engine, there would have been debris lying on the runway, either of small bird parts or of the turbine blade. Something would have been found. Nothing was found, which what you call, at least for now, discounts the theory of a verdict. So,
And what
it's
about fuel
something which is
contamination? Is that still on the table?
could be, could be, but if I was to be on the other side of the fence on that, I'd say that if there was fuel contamination doesn't just sort of appear suddenly. When you throttle out, you'd have
Yes.
spluttering of the engines. There'll be some rough running, something would be there.
So
Okay,
you
and if
would
that
know before
happens
you
at
took
that
off.
stage, yes, yes, something, yes, there would be some kind of rough running or something. It doesn't just suddenly switch off the what do you
Okay.
call engine.
Okay, Sanat Kaul,
So
I want to come.
it's baffling.
It is baffling, which is entirely exactly why it is garnering so much attention. Of course, because it is a tragic event where an entire flight has crashed and barring one, 241 on board have perished. There are 20 plus casualties on ground, but also because of the nature of the crash, and it gave literally no one any opportunity. Sanat Kaul, former Joint Secretary of Ministry of Civil Aviation, is also with us, sir. Along with these baffling instance, the baffling instance of the crash itself, now we're getting to know that more such Boeing Dreamliners have had to return to their original destination. Two instances have happened over the last 2 days. Is this alarming for you, particularly because of the aircraft? Is there something in the aircraft that we need to look at?
Yeah, well, not going into the reasons for the crash, but yes, definitely there is something alarming, and there is sufficient evidence of that about Boeing, about Max 737 Max, and about this Dreamliner. It has been taken up by the U.S. Congress. The CEO of Boeing was not only cross-examined, badly cross-examined, and I would say humiliated by the congressman. Therefore, I think there is something very serious about the structure of Boeing at the manufacturing stage and the safety precautions that they ignored. So these are issues which are coming up. However, to say that all of them are like that, or that this particular aircraft, which has been running for 10 years, was so far so good. So, what is the reason? I don't know. I don't want to make a guess. But the only thing which I can say is that technically everybody is baffled. Is this, can this be a sabotage, a cyber attack type thing? That has not been discussed. And I'm trying to just put this in the mind that yes, why should we eliminate that possibility either? Because today, the cyber is something which can put an entire aircraft out of gear. It can take aircraft from one location, instead of going to B, it goes to C. So many things are happening. So we have not.
DBS Gujral, who's former DG Flight Safety Air Costa, is also with us. Mr. Gujral, your thoughts? Could we still look at something? Are there capabilities of this kind that are available where right after takeoff an entire plane and its systems can be taken out in a sabotage kind of a situation? Do we have those capabilities with anybody?
I would like to say that I just heard my co-panelist saying something. In today's world, I think anything and everything is possible, but we have to avoid speculations. We have to go by the fact that we must try to go into the reasons for such noise all over the world, which is very genuine, to know as to what really happened exactly, which took the lives of almost about 300 people in our country. And this can't be ignored, and we have to take full precaution and have to take go into thoroughly investigate and try to understand as to why this has happened. And unless we get the answer for this, it's very, very necessary for us to all have a thorough investigation.
Yeah.
And I also understand that the government has appointed a very high-level committee.
Yes.
And all the Boeings have been subjected to inspection.
Yes.
By our regulator. DGCA India has issued instructions for special instruction of this aircraft before it takes the next flight.
No, but already 2 instances have happened. So certainly flights that were inbound to India, certainly I don't know whether there was any attempt to hold them and ground them for a while as these checks are carried out. But do you believe that there is something there, Mr. Gujral, when it comes to Boeing's processes? Because these are whistleblowers who have come out in the past. There have investigations been done. The conclusion to those investigations has not been satisfactory to anybody, because it seems like money or fines were paid to brush things under the carpet. That hasn't really left anybody with a good taste in their mouth, because it doesn't seem like it went to conclusion.
No, fines apart, if there is any even 1% doubt on the capability of an aircraft to be airborne before it's cleared, I think we must take all precautions. We must look into everything that is noticed, and unless the competent authority and the people releasing the aircraft are satisfied, we should not take to air.
Mr. Kaul, do you think it would be necessary to subject only a particular aircraft maker to greater scrutiny, given what has happened, Boeing in this case? How far can that go? How far or how long can you ground an entire airline maker, given that Boeing, forms a significant percentage of the planes flying today?
No, I don't think you can ground it. In fact, I'm taking an Air India flight on 20th. I hope everything works out. I'm going to London on it. Maybe it's the same Dreamliner, and I'm prepared to go. So these are issues which are, imponderables, unknowns and imponderables. Now, how long can you, ground the aircraft? I think there are other people who would like to give an opinion. I don't think grounding a full fleet of aircraft, which have been running for the last 10 years or so, is the solution. The solution is to immediately find out what went wrong. Was it something to do with the aircraft structure, or was it something else? So we just don't have any idea what happened.
Exactly.
Well,
it is a confounding mystery. That is the word really that comes to mind. But we certainly do hope that as soon as possible, within the first 30 days of a crash, we're supposed to get a report, which is a preliminary report. And then, of course, the investigations will continue. And we certainly hope that we have a report that can satisfy the curiosity of the public, because without that, there is speculation and then there's also fear. I've run out of time. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Moving on to the other big story we're tracking, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to land in Canada later today. This marks a pivotal moment for India-Canada relations. Prime Minister will exchange views with leaders of G7 countries, the summit that he's going for, other invited outreach countries, heads of international organizations at the summit on crucial global issues, including energy security, technology, innovation, particularly AI energy nexus and quantum-related issues. But the big question is, can this G7 summit reshape the diplomatic landscape between the two nations after years of tensions? Now, Narendra Modi is scheduled to meet his Canadian counterpart, Mark Carney, on the sidelines of the summit with senior officials in attendance and discuss new intelligence sharing arrangements and work towards curbing misunderstandings. Narendra Modi's participation in G7 summit in Canada carries significant strategic and diplomatic weight for India, and here's why his presence is important. This is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's first foreign visit since India's precision strikes against Pakistani terror and infrastructure under Operation Sindoor. Prime Minister Modi is likely to send out India's message against terror. The summit will provide him with an opportunity for bilateral meetings and world leaders and further push India's agenda. And India is not a G7 member, remember, but it has been regularly invited since 2019. This reflects India's rising global stature as the world's fourth largest economy and key democratic power in global south. And at the 2025 summit, Israel-Iran conflict, the Russia-Ukraine war, they'll all dominate discussions, and this will be a key opportunity to present both India's view and vision. India-Canada relations, on the other hand, have experienced significant strain in recent years, primarily due to the 2023 assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. The subsequent diplomatic fallout has been marked by reciprocal expulsions of diplomats, suspensions of visa services, and a pause in trade negotiations. Now, both nations share a strong diaspora tie. Canada is home to over 1.4 million people of Indian origin, including a very significant Sikh population. Bilateral goods trade reached $9.36 billion in 2023, making India Canada's 10th largest trading partner. India is also the largest source of international students in Canada, accounting for 40% of the 8 lakh plus foreign students in 2022. But there are a few prickly points too. India perceives Canada's leniency towards pro-Khalistan separatists such as Hardeep Singh Nijjar himself as a threat to its sovereignty, severely straining bilateral ties. Canada's appeasement of Sikh separatist activism has become a thorn in the relationship. And open allegations of Indian involvement in Nijjar's 2023 killing before a credible investigation brought relations to a historic low. So the big question we're asking is simply this: can Carney undo Trudeau's Khalistan mess? Or are there shades of more of that continuing, even though Canada has had to accept that India needs to be on the table at G7? Guest joining us, Terry Milewski is author and well-known expert on the Khalistani separatist movement in Canada. Shashank, former Foreign Secretary, joining us, and Ramneek Singh Mann is activist based in India. I want to begin with Terry Milewski. Your thoughts on whether Carney can actually undo some of the mess that Trudeau left behind?
Well, thanks for the invitation. And the answer is, yeah, maybe some of it, but not all of it. Here's the problem. Mr. Carney is a very different figure than Justin Trudeau, which India regards as a very good thing, of course. He has already lowered the temperature considerably. He was asked recently, for example, what are you going to do about this problem of law enforcement saying that the Indian side has been engaged in criminal activity in Canada. Well, that's a police matter, he said. That's before the courts. I can't comment on it. That's a change. That's meaningful. The fact that he didn't say anything about it takes it off the agenda to a degree. However, the problem is that however he wants to change the subject, and he does. He wants to talk about a lot of other things. That's behind the invitation to Prime Minister Modi, of course. But however much that's the case, you pick up the phone, call the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and say, you know, these charges are diplomatically inconvenient. Can you drop the charges, please, against these guys who allegedly murdered Hardeep Singh Nijjar and so on? That's not how it works in Canada. It's an independent police force. So there are limits on his ability to control the leaders, the court process. There are limits on his ability to change the topic. But
what about
those leaders
what about the threats against India, Indian leaders, Indian diplomats? That's very much in his control.
And it's being taken seriously, assure you. And I should say, by the way, that there are angry demonstrations about Modi's visit, as you know. But, you know, I don't know if you've ever been to Banff or Calgary or Kananaskis where the summit is being held. It's a big country. And they are, the demonstrations are an hour away, the summit is. I don't think they're going to hike through the mountains. Those are serious mountains. Look, this is Canada. You want to have a demonstration? No problem. Go ahead, and we'll make sure you're an hour away from where you want to be. So there's no chance, I don't think. I know that country. And I don't think there's any chance that anyone's going to get through and threaten the safety of any of the leaders.
No, we're not suspecting that. We're not suspecting that, Terry Milewski. I'm sure the Canadian authorities will be on top of the situation, despite the very threatening tone and tenor of these demonstrations. And Mr. Shashank, I'm coming to you exactly on that point. The issue is not demonstrations. India understands free principles as much as any other Western country. The issue is the language that is being used, the imagery that is being portrayed, the support of the assassination of former Indian prime ministers, for example. That is what is the problem here, not so much the fact that there are demonstrations.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of past things which are always acting as a baggage in the India-Canada relations, starting from the Kanishka air crash, which has not yet been fully completed and closed. So now we are expecting that law will take its course, but it will not be allowed to be guided by political considerations. Because firstly, I think President Trump has changed the agenda for the Canadian politics. So therefore, Prime Minister Carney has to first deal with the immediate issues of setting up his economic progress and economic report, so that Canada does not become the 51st state of USA. So that becomes the first priority. Later on, of course, there will be priority of keeping the various groups of foreigners or people of foreign origin living in Canada, and there will be the Sikhs also. But as you know, that most of the Sikhs are peaceful people there. Most of the Indians are peaceful. They want to contribute to the Canadian society. But there's a very small group, motivated people, motivated by money, motivated by all kinds of other considerations, who take control of the gurdwaras, who take control of the political narrative. I think that they should be allowed to carry on, and gradually they will find that they really have a very limited space available to them politically as well as in the society. I think that is how it should go. Prime Minister Modi is going there for a specific purpose. Right now, there are very burning issues of global peace and security. And all the countries present at this meeting, they want to consult Prime Minister Modi.
Yes.
Because there are many leaders to whom only Prime Minister Modi can talk in confidence and with friendship.
Ramnik Man, do you feel that Canada is serious about mending this relationship? I mean, if we see some of the visuals coming out of Canadian cities that Terry Milewski is talking about, it doesn't look very good. And it is precisely this issue that bothers India. It's not so much the police investigations, although, of course, public allegations against India, the way they were made under Trudeau, certainly wasn't the most diplomatic way of handling it. But do you believe, despite NDP's lower control over the governing party, is Canada serious about the K threat?
Oh, well, let me put it to you like this, Shivani. I was listening to both the gentlemen very carefully. Number one, so far as Mark Carney is concerned, it depends what is his intent, how serious is he about, having to establish good relations with India once again, because Trudeau had brought it down to the lowest ever. Whether it was diplomatic relations, whether it was people-to-people contact, suspension of visa services. There were many things, downgrading of the number of staff both countries had. So that is one. The intent of the Prime Minister is very important. But also on a follow-up of what you said, Shivani, very rightly so, we have to see how, the Canadians actually take the relation forward post-G7. Or is it just a compulsion for the G7 and then they would, sidestep again. So up to, I would say, post G7 and right up to the 2027 Punjab elections, because there are a lot of interested parties within Canada who keep meddling in India's internal affairs, especially when it comes to Punjab elections. So now further, I think, these Canadian goons are more of a Canadian problem. These Khalistani goons, I intend to say that, because they're all Canadian citizens. Hardly any one of them is an Indian citizen. So if a Canadian citizen wants to break India, they want India to break into parts, well, that's for Canada to see that would they actually allow their citizens in the name of free speech to promote secessionism in a different country. And India of course, has its own concerns when it comes to the Prime Minister's visit.
It's not just
But
secessionism
again,
or separatism. You know, Ramneek Man, I'm failing to understand why Canada doesn't understand some of the tactics employed, some of the tone and tenor, some of the associations that these groups have. It's not just about separatism and,
they
secession. It is
understand
about terror.
much too well, as a matter of fact,
It is about
Shivani.
terror. It is about
Shivani,
terror. It's about lawlessness.
Yes, Shivani, I would want to differ with you on that, because it is about time, I believe, that Canadians already understand and realize that these K-goons are more of a problem within the boundaries of Canada, is because they are causing a law and order problem and a situation for Canadian bounties to handle. So far as dropping the charges, I believe Terry is going a little too far. Nobody's expecting them to drop the charges. They can't go on forever. Like the Kanishka trial, it's going to be 40 years after the Kanishka bombing. How many people were actually, sentenced, or how many people were actually given punishment for that event? Well, anyway, when you are permitting, these goons to actually target directly the Indian ambassador or the Indian diplomatic mission and staff there, this is something which is utterly unacceptable.
Absolutely.
And especially in a free world. In the name of free speech, you can't actually give life threats. That is not acceptable.
Well, we know what free speech stands for in Canada when it comes to, protesting its own government's regulations, for example. So it's not fooling anybody. Yes, Terry, you wanted to come in.
Well, I was going to say that we should all remember, I think, that we tend to exaggerate the power and the political clout of the Khalistani element in Canada. We did, for example, it's perfectly true to say that last year a member of the governing Liberal Party of Canada actually used the parliamentary website as an MP from Calgary, from Surrey, British Columbia, to propagate a petition asking for a new inquiry to suggest that Air India was bombed by the Indian government, not by the Khalistanis. This nonsense, it was absolutely disgraceful and made people angry more than anything. But here's the result. Out of 800,000 Sikhs in Canada, he got 4,000 votes after 4 months of trying using the parliamentary website. There's no appetite for this. They're a small minority. They don't have the impact that they pretend to have having these demonstrations. People are not with them. Canadians are tuning them out. Look what happened. You've already alluded to it quite correctly in the last election, where Jagmeet Singh, who was holding up the Trudeau government, is not in Parliament anymore, is he? His party was decimated. We have to pay attention not just to the violent rhetoric and the claims that, we're not going to allow Modi. Well, Modi is here. They're not doing anything about it. They can't stop it. And Mark Carney isn't going to change his policy in order to accommodate the Khalistanis in the way that Trudeau might have.
So I want to ask you, do you believe that the Canadian government, the new government under Mark Carney, the establishment does want to move on, does want to take India's concern on the cave movement seriously?
Yes, they do. There's a lot of regret in all quarters, not just the business side, that things have come to the low point that they're at now. Carney and his government want to repair those relations. They've made that clear with this invitation, and you will hear more on that topic, I believe, quite soon when they get together and announce the new agreements. It may be there isn't much flesh on the bones of those. We won't see very much substance immediately, but there will be paper handed out to the press. You see, we're making up. And that puts pressure on them, does it not, to deliver something at the end of it.
So
that if they're going to have
this is not just about Canada being arm twisted and being relentlessly, just giving an invite to India, not really wanting to do it. They have some serious thought about where Indo-Canadian relationship should go.
Yes, what happened under Justin Trudeau is not popular. It did not work. It angered people. It's one of the reasons why Trudeau had to step down. And Mark Carney is a different man.
Okay.
He is interested in trade with India, and he doesn't want to prioritize and wants to distance himself from the old pandering to the Khalistan element.
Okay, we're very glad to hear that. Yes, I have a final couple of minutes left. Ramneek Man, you go first. I'll give the final word to Mr.
Okay,
Shashank.
so when Terry says what he says, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting, sir. We will see how it plays out eventually, because we have been seeing, and a very different story has been played out towards India. And being a Sikh, I know what it means. Irrespective of number of people, but the influence they have, especially with the WSO and the kind of penetration these Khalistani elements have in the Canadian society, not just in the society, but also in the Canadian system, whether it is judiciary, police, or army. So they have influence. And these handful of people have been able to bring the diplomatic relations between two large democracies to a level that has never been before. So you don't take them lightly, one. Two, when you say that, demonstrations happen, I'm sure they happen. They happen in every country in the free world. But they get violent so quickly. Your own citizens have been harassed and your citizens have been beaten up. What have you done about it? There have been gurdwaras which have been vandalized. There have been temples which have been vandalized. There have been people who have been beaten up. What has the Mounties done about it? So we're not asking you to drop charges. We're just asking the Canadians to wrap it up quickly. Whatever justice you wish to give, or whatever proofs you have in respect of Nijar's case, just get it over with and let this case be once and for all.
Mr. Shashank, my final question, exactly speaking about this whole law enforcement angle, Canada acting like, we have these credible evidences or suspicions on India, and we have this, we have that. I fail to understand, why does such a professional, police force not have enough on the illegal activities that this gang is doing on Canadian soil? You see very little action on that. As Ramneek Man pointed out, there's clear excesses in law that are taking place in the name of this activism. There's not much we hear on what this professional police force is doing on that.
No, there are two aspects. One is the legal part, the other is the political. Earlier, both legal and political were all together, and that's what they were bringing down the level of a bilateral relationship. I'm quite sure that this time Prime Minister Modi will give specific proof of how in Pakistan, they are supporting all kinds of terrorists against India. And the Khalistani terrorists would be also part of the same gang. And what Prime Minister Modi will perhaps share are the photographs of the Pakistani top leadership, political and military, crying out for the killed terrorists and paying all of them, their families, 1 crore rupees each, in order to support further terrorism from Pakistan. So I think all these will be shared, and I'm sure that there will be an anti-terror cooperation protocol between India and Canada. And I'm sure that this will help taking out the legal parts or the police investigation, totally separate from the political aspect, which they were unnecessarily muddying the situation.
All right. I'll leave it at that. I do thank all of our experts for joining us. We'll, of course, keep getting you the latest from the G7 summit, and particularly with an eye on India-Canada relationships. Now, speaking of relationships, remember, there is this big conflict going on in the Middle East. Iran has now launched a new wave of missile attacks on Israel early Monday, resulting in at least 5 deaths and dozens of injuries. The conflict has entered its 4th day, with both nations continuing to exchange missile and drone strikes. Iran is reportedly taking steps to pull out of the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, escalating the situation further. The international community is urging both nations to de-escalate and seek diplomatic solutions to avoid further casualties and economic impacts, but the situation remains highly volatile with significant global attention and concern. Let me tell you the latest that has transpired. Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei and his family have reportedly been evacuated to an underground bunker in northeastern Tehran. Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Intelligence Chief Brigadier General Mohammad Kazemi and his deputy Hassan Mohaki have been killed in the Israeli strikes. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has claimed control over Tehran's airspace. The Israeli military asserts it has degraded Iranian defenses. Israel's strikes at Iran's Fordo nuclear site have reportedly triggered a 2.5 Richter scale earthquake. US Embassy in Tel Aviv has sustained minor damages after an Iranian strike, but no injuries have been reported. I also spoke to Syed Imanian, assistant professor at Tehran Polytechnic University and co-founder of governance and policy think tank, on the situation in Iran and the blame game that is going on between Israel and Iran. Listen. To talk more about this entire conflict and, of course, where this is heading, particularly for Iran, I'm joined by Syed Imamian, who's assistant professor at Tehran Polytechnic University and also co-founder of the governance and policy think tank. Syed, thanks a lot for joining us. These are, of course, very difficult times for the people of Iran. I first want to begin by understanding from you, did Iran underestimate some of the build-up to the actual conflict beginning? You and I were speaking briefly before the actual strike from Israel started, and the sense wasn't that it is going to be as imminent as it was.
First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me here. Let's to begin with this fact that this is a war imposed by Israelis on Iran. And I think generally speaking, it was something expected because Israel's identity is founded based on terror and aggression and violation of the others, and occupation and violation of other territories. So it's the essence of the Israeli as a political regime, colonial, occupied political project. So in generally speaking, it was expected. But with regards to the talks that has started by the U.S., I think there was always some signals was coming from the U.S. officials, particularly President Trump and his chief negotiator, Steve Witkoff, that once we are going to talk, we are not going to allow Israelis to attack you. So there was a kind of the coming and going of the signals in the media, in the news. And we think now that in the last few days before the strike, even a week before, Trump was to some extent, based on what has been said in the news, Trump knew about what is going to happen. But he played to some extent a role by deviating all the public attitudes that it won't happen unless Trump goes ahead with its talks with Iran, or if talks failed, then it would be something else may happen. So in that regards, maybe there was some kind of the public surprise or public shock for the Iranians, at least in the first day, and the casualties that happened in the first attack of the Israelis mainly came out of such kind of the, in my view, such kind of the shocking timing of the invasion. So,
having said that, is the Iranian government, regime, or the Iranian people as a whole feeling a little betrayed by the US in this case?
I would say that we understand that Trump has been pressurized by two camps within his inner circle. First of all, I call them America First camp. That they have been called isolationist. They are not in favor of any Trump's or U.S. intervention in other countries. Particularly, they are thinking of not paying the cost of the Israelis' aggression and violation. But the other part of the Trump's inner circle has been funded heavily during his electoral campaign by the Israelis' backed funders, and you know about the Israeli lobby in the U.S. So Trump is almost under this kind of the dual pressure from his campaign. And we think that Trump came to talk to Iranian without such kind of the very complicated, sophisticated plan in his mind. But at the end of the day, because of the pressure from the Israelis, he provided such a green light to Israelis to attack, at least now, without Trump's direct intervention.
But speaking of Israel, they are obviously saying that the nuclear program, which is breaching the agreements with Iran, is an existential threat to them. And they have justified their strike on Iran as something that they have to do because Iran has also very clearly vowed the destruction of Israel. So is the entire blame on Israel alone?
Of course, it's clear. First of all, Iranian nuclear program has been civilized since the beginning. There is no evidence of the military program here. But everyone knows in the region that Israeli nuclear ambiguity strategy, that means Israel has thousands, at least hundreds of the nuclear warhead. So I think it's very, very joking if everyone believed what Israel is saying, that they have the only nuclear power in the West Asia that has hundreds of the nuclear warhead without any commitment to international law, and with a substance and history of being genocidal, being aggressor, being eliminationist, and being expansionist. He's feeling threatened by a country that for hundreds of years never invaded any country. For a country
No,
with
but the
rich
difference here
civilization
is that
among the
Israel's weapons, you're right about the fact that it has nuclear weapons, but Israel has not vowed the destruction of Iran. Iran has vowed the destruction of Israel. So the two situations can be looked at very differently.
No, Iran never said that officially or publicly. Yes, Iran always has said, it's not only about Iran, it's about every nations in the region. Even India has been said we are in support of the Palestinian right. And if Palestinians or anyone that has been invaded or attacked or has been oppressed by the Israelis' aggression and violence and occupation are going to defend themselves, Iran and all countries are going to support them.
No, that's different. That's different than vowing the destruction of Israel, the Jewish state of Israel. Israel has never really said that about Iran or any other Middle Eastern countries, but Iran and its supreme leader has.
No, if you just check what has happened, what has been said, the exact phrase is that Israel, as occupying a state that is superficially a political project, will be eliminated by the people that has been occupied by Israelis, not by anyone else.
If this isn't about Iran per se, it is about Iran's proxy war with Israel. Its support to proxy groups which are anti-Israel like Hamas and of course like Hezbollah. The fear, which is not just Israel's fear, but fear around the world is that if Iran had nuclear weapons, it could supply them to these groups that have very little accountability, unlike Iran would have as a country. That's really the problem here.
Of course, Iran is not going to. First of all, Iran has been very clear that is not such a case of the proximate approach to those kind of the groups. They are resistant groups. They are allies with the Irans, and they are defending themselves. Look at what is happening now. Neither Hezbollah, neither Hamas, no one has been in support of the Iran in attacking Israelis. All of them. They are just national groups that they have been founded even before Iranian Revolution. You know that the Palestinian resistance, even Hamas, has been established before Iranian Revolution. They are national original groups.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
between Israel and Iran escalate, the Jammu and Kashmir government has also set up 24/7 control rooms to assist distraught families. Chief Minister Omar Abdullah on Sunday spoke to External Affairs Minister S. Shankar over safety of the Kashmiri students. The Chief Minister said that the External Affairs Minister had assured him that the ministry is in close contact with their counterparts in Iran and will take all necessary steps for the safety and well-being of students in the country. With around 1,300 Kashmiri students enrolled in Iranian institutions, their families are making urgent appeals for evacuation. The Congress, in the meanwhile, has called the Ministry of External Affairs to implement a coordinated evacuation plan to bring students home safely. Listen in.
मैं पहले वीडियो में भी ये जिक्र कर चुकी हूँ कि हमें एज सुन एज पॉसिबल इवैक्यूएट किया जाए, बिकॉज एट दिस पॉइंट हमारे जो भाई हैं तेहरान यूनिवर्सिटी के जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं, उनकी बॉयज डॉम के नज़दीक ही हमला हुआ है एंड दे हैव ऑल्सो बिन अफेक्टेड बाय द अटैक, और कुछ जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं वो जख्मी भी हो गए हैं. सो वो हालत हमारी भी ना हो जाए उससे पहले प्लीज हमें इवैक्यूएट कर दिया जाए, क्योंकि इस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम पे ना हमें वाटर सप्लाई है डॉम की, ना नेट, इंटरनेट इज वेरी वीक, इंटरनेट बिल्कुल भी नहीं चल रहा है, ना मैसेज जा रही है, ना आ रही है, ना प्रॉपर्ली कम्युनिकेट कर पा रहे हैं हम किसी से भी. और ऑन टॉप ऑफ दैट अभी शायद इलेक्ट्रिसिटी भी चली जाएगी और उसके बाद हमारा वाईफाई भी डाउन हो जाएगा, जिसपे हम अभी थोड़ा बहुत इंटरनेट चला रहे हैं, और उसके बाद हम शायद बिल्कुल भी कम्युनिकेट ना कर पाए.
अच्छा जी, इस वक्त क्या हालात है तेहरान में और ईरान के और हिस्सों में? भारतीय मूल के लोग बताए जा रहे हैं कि उनको इंडियन एम्बेसी ने एक जगह आने को कहा है और वहां से कुछ इवैक्यूएशन की बात की जा रही है, नॉर्थ की तरफ लेके जा रहे हैं. जरा उस बारे में बताइए, और पिछले 2-3 दिनों में जो कुछ हुआ है उस बारे में थोड़ा बताइए.
हाँ, 2-3 दिन से तो अटैक चल रहे हैं. 2 दिन पहले रात में 3:30 बजे से अटैक चालू हुआ है इजराइल का ईरान पे, और अभी तक अटैक कंटिन्यू चल रहा है. दोनों साइड से अलग अलग सिटीज में है, क्योंकि मेरे सारे दोस्त भी हैं बहुत सारे जो इस्फहान में हैं, मशहद में है, उरूमिया में है, तबरीज और किरमान वगैरह में है, तो वहाँ भी अटैक कंटिन्यू हो रहा है. एम्बेसी कोऑपरेट कर रही है. आज से एम्बेसी ने कहा है कि हम लोग सोल्यूशन निकालेंगे, और कुछ बच्चों को मेडिकल वाले से अलग, जिसमें मैं नॉन मेडिकल बैकग्राउंड से, मैं लिटरेचर बैकग्राउंड से, तो हम लोग का आज कल बोल रहे हैं कि 5 बजे मॉर्निंग में एक स्पेसिफिक जगह पे पहुंचने के लिए, तो देखते हैं कल वहाँ पे पहुंच के कि उन लोगों का क्या प्लान है. अभी तक कोई ऐसा डिटेल नहीं बताया, बस एक जगह बताया कि वहाँ पे जाने के पाल के जा रहे हैं.
तो सिर्फ तेहरान में पढ़ रहे बच्चों के लिए कहा गया है, पूरे ईरान में जो बच्चे हैं उन सबको कहा गया है?
नहीं, पूरे ईरान में बच्चों से स्टूडेंट्स है स्पेशली, क्योंकि अभी और लोगों को नहीं हेल्प हो रहा है, सिर्फ अभी स्टूडेंट को हेल्प कर रही है अराउंड द ईरान. पूरे यूनिवर्सिटी से सारे से ग्रुप बनाया गया है, मैं भी हूँ ग्रुप में तेहरान का, अलग अलग सिटीज का, तो स्टूडेंट ही उसका ग्रुप को हेड कर रहे हैं, लेकिन वो लोग एम्बेसी से कांटेक्ट में, एम्बेसी उनको हेल्प कर रही है, सब कुछ कर रही है अभी फिलहाल.
हमारे लिए सारे बच्चे स्पेशल हैं. क्यों हमारे बच्चों को इवैक्यूएट कीजिए. हम आपके रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं, हैंडफोल्ड रिक्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं कि उनको वहाँ से प्लीज, वो उस पोजीशन में नहीं है. कल से उनको पैनिक अटैक्स आ रहे हैं, वो कुछ खा नहीं पा रहे हैं, पूरी रात जागते हैं. वो बिल्कुल उसी एरिया में है, कभी यहाँ से कभी वहाँ से, कुछ नहीं. तेहरान में ये सादाबाद वो बिल्कुल पॉश एरिया है जी, बिल्कुल तेहरान जल रहा है एक हिसाब से. वहाँ पे कोई चीज सेफ नहीं है, कोई गली सेफ नहीं है, वहाँ पे कुछ सेफ नहीं बचा है.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsimhan. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is taking Bharat's strategic interests to the next level by realigning the mission of a Viksit Bharat in the wake of Operation Sindoor and also its strategic posture. The Prime Minister was in Cyprus just a few hours ago, marking the third visit by an Indian Prime Minister to the nation in Turkey's sphere of influence. After receiving a ceremonial welcome, PM Modi was accorded the highest honor of Cyprus, the Grand Cross of the Order of the Makario III. This will mark Prime Minister Modi's 23rd global honor. Other nations include Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, Palestine, Bahrain,